Hello and welcome to News Central Exclusive, where we dissect the most pressing national issues with thought leaders, analysts and key stakeholders. I am Kaide Akintemi, and today we explore the deepening constitutional and political crisis shaking Nigeria. The suspension of elected officials in Rivers State by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has sparked outrage, with many questioning its legality and potential implications for democracy. Is this an abuse of executive power, or is there a legal basis for it? Beyond Rivers, Nigeria's political landscape is undergoing a significant realignment. Former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has dumped the ruling All Progressives Congress for the Social Democratic Party and is calling for a coalition against the government ahead of 2027. But is this a genuine opposition movement, or could there be a hidden agenda, as some Nigerians are implying? Joining me to unpack these pressing issues is a man known for his fearless advocacy for democracy and justice. Lawyer, writer, and activist Dele Farotimi. It's good to have you here again.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, let me start this way. Our guest today is a fearless advocate for justice, a respected public intellectual, and a man known for his unwavering stance on democratic principles. Dele Farotimi is a lawyer, writer, and political commentator who consistently championed good governance and the rule of law. He is the author of Do Not Die in Their War, and a vocal critic of systemic injustice in Nigeria. He was recently on this program to discuss the state of the nation, and today we'll be diving deeper into the unfolding events in Rivers State, the legality of President Tinubu's actions, and the broader implications of recent political alignments. Mr. Farotimi, welcome again, and I'll say let's start this way. Rivers crisis between Wike and Fubara. I've listened to you talk about it for a bit. The feud between former governor and Governor Fubara has been described as a power struggle rather than a governance dispute. In your view, what does this say about the state of the nation and the nature of Nigeria's political journey, or democratic journey rather?
You know, I recently came across this social theory. It's known as normative collapse. And it speaks to a situation where a society has moved away from its guardrails, the norms that should protect the society and ensure that it progresses along a defined path. The norms that stops us from prioritizing private good, whilst we abandon what is common good to all. These norms have completely collapsed in our society to the point where if you strip the wicked similarities dance, if you strip it of the lies and distractions, what you find at the center of it is a quarrel among what I would generally refer to as thieves. I use the word advisedly. Not in the sense of somebody who has stolen my property, but as somebody who has stolen the rights and the commonwealth of the people. Nobody, as you have said even in your question, has spoken to policy disagreements. We are not talking about ideological arguments. The totality of the argument is about how to share the commonwealth. Even from what the combatants have said in the public space, there is enough to draw this conclusion. So when you now find that because of that, we're in what is not a constitutional crisis, I beg to disagree. We moved beyond constitutional crisis in 2023. We've moved beyond that. In the first place, you need to have a constitution to fall into a constitutional crisis. It is the inherent contradictions and lies, both that produced the 1999 Constitution and that it contains, that we're grappling with today, where we have a president who is unchecked by the powers of a judicial arm, of a legislative arm that is largely responsible to the people, and subsequently finds itself able to dance to the whims of a president who himself does not believe that he owes it to Nigerians to use the powers enshrined in that constitution, as illegal as it is, for the benefit of all. We may quarrel about the imperfections and the lies of the 1999 Constitution, but even as imperfect as it is, if the president and the operators of that Constitution would adhere by its letters, unambiguous letters, we will not be in the kind of mess from which we seem to jump every day, from day to day. It's almost like every day there is something new. So the wicked similarity thing is just another episode in a never-ending tragic comedy.
Okay, let me pick you up on one of the things you just said in your analysis.
Yeah.
You seem to be implying that we don't have a constitution.
Do we?
1999 Constitution is still in effect, and it's what it seems like we are following.
The last
Same
time,
being the operative word there.
the last time I checked, when you say something is a constitution, it tends to flow from the people it governs. So if it were to be the carpentry union with its constitution by which it would register at the CAC, you would find the rules the people, the carpenters, have agreed to be governed by. Nigerians were not involved as a people in the creation of the 1999 Constitution. It took General Abdulsalami, I don't want to start, but the legality and legitimacy of that Constitution has been in contention from the beginning, from its roots. Now, if you even now say, okay, let's even presume legitimacy to this Constitution, how has the president's action in Rivers State flow from that Constitution? The legitimacy of a Constitution is essentially upheld by those who are meant to operate it. When those who are meant to operate it observe it more in breach than in observance, how can we then speak to a constitution when the constitution is what the president says it is at any point in time? Because I don't know where the powers to remove an elected, to suspend an elected governor, I don't know where that power came from. To suspend an elected House of Assembly, I don't know where that power came from.
Okay, well, one of the things that I was going to ask you is that President Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State. He suspended Governor Fubara and the entire elected members of the State Assembly. The president cited security concerns and pipeline vandalism as reasons for declaring a state of emergency. Do you believe this justification holds water, or are you cynical to the extent that you can't see any justification?
My people have this proverb, when you translate it, all it says is that when you see the landlord's child breaking the tenant's door, you know that the father has sanctioned the madness. A principal party to this mess is still sat in the cabinet. The president's pronouncement related to Rivers State renders him complicit, in actual fact, in the mess in Rivers State on the part of Wike. But without prejudice to how he might feel, I would imagine that the Constitution, which he swore to uphold, should guide his action. And it hasn't. If you're talking about state of emergency, the Constitution, as imperfect as it is, set out the parameters by which you determine if there is a state of emergency to be declared. Rivers is nowhere near the most insecure state in Nigeria today. There are multiple states in the northeast, in the northwest, that have by far more level, even in the middle belt, that have by far higher levels of insecurity, where Nigerian lives have been lost on a daily basis. If anything, news agencies are suppressing those news, and the president does not see any emergency in those places. And even the last time anything like this happened in 2014, Jonathan did not presume to remove the 3 governors. I believe that was Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa. He did not presume to suspend them. He declared the state of emergency, but he worked with the governors.
Political
and even at that time, our present imperator was one of the loudest voices in condemnation of the mild steps Jonathan took. Look, Yoruba say, Ajekela no mokuleni, the witch cried yesterday, the child is dead today. It is a logical inference to draw that everything that has happened in Rivers State is based on political permutations for 2027, and the will of the people, which did not matter in 2023 in Rivers State, is being programmed to be relevant again in 2027. If the people were involved in the election of Similari Fubara, if it was an expression, if his election was an expression of their sovereign will, I am not sure that there will be a godfather somewhere demanding that his structure cannot be taken away from him. So when you are hearing talks of structure that cannot be taken away, structure of what? Structures for the enforcement of impunity of all forms. So the way the president has acted is suggestive of a proud father of a truant child whose child is fighting outside, and instead of quelling the battle, simply intervened on the side of his child with the paraphernalia of offices and everything he possesses.
So would you then be implying that since someone who is declared as the godfather of Fubara has said that his structure is what he does not want to lose, would you then be implying that that may be the reason why the people of Rivers are not up in arms against this decision?
Look, we as a people would appear to have become defeated. It is not just Rivers people who are not up in arms. I have found even those who were yesterday's defenders of human rights, defenders of democracy, ominously silent in this season. The average Nigerian has had poverty weaponized against him for so long that he is more or less focused on surviving another day. And in any case, the battle was never about him. Whether Similari is retained in office or whether it is the man that they have brought by emergency, and whoever gets there based on this demonic system that we appear to be operating, the sole victims are the people. So what is the need for them? If they were connected in a manner where Similari had made that level of difference in their lives, or they are invested in him as a governor, you would have seen the connection that would have even stopped Wike from daring to do this to him. The House of Assembly members would not have presumed to do this to him. But it is the structure that delivered them into office, not the will of the people. So if the people are going to be fighting, they will be joining their own war. That is not to say that the people should not be alarmed or should not be more connected to what is happening to them, because the people have become almost like chicken in a poultry. The owner comes in from time to time and picks the one he desires for dinner, and they just cackle and it ends there, and they just keep going right after. He might even bring the entrails for them to feed on, and you can see that happening already. Some people who were against Wike doing this yesterday have today been declaring their loyalties, because everything is about serving the God of the belly. Nobody really believes in anything anymore.
Okay, well, let's move on quickly to this issue of the Senate approving the proclamation of state of emergency in Rivers State. What precedent does this set for democracy in Nigeria? Could this embolden future presidents to use emergency declaration for political control? A lot of people are wondering in Nigeria, it's all over the social media where people are saying that any governor in Nigeria that upsets the incumbent president could end up in a situation where he's removed from office, in inverted commas, open and close, suspended, not removed.
Good for them. Look, unlike those who are alarmed, who are just cottoning on to the idea that we are not in a democracy, I have been shouting stridently for years that Nigeria is not a democracy, the people are not citizens, the law does not rule, and we are certainly not burdened by leaders. We have ruiners. I have said this for years. But you see, until suffering is democratized, a consensus cannot really be found for waging the necessary battle to end this state of anomy. Yesterday's beneficiaries, even those who brought Tinubu to power, those who refused to listen to reason, who endorsed it, who explained it, who were complicit in the erection of this system, they are going to become victims to this system. Lord Acton, it was, they had that long-winded quote, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely nonsense. It should have simply stopped at power corrupts. The purpose of power is to corrupt. Those who have brought this man into office will be the first victim of his rule. And it will be nice if they too begin to feel victimized as the average Nigerian has been victimized all this while. Yorubas will say, if suffering is not democratized, consensus to fight it will not be found. It is nice to hear the likes of Rufais bleating like a victim these days. That is what his victims have been doing for years. If he was sat in the ministerial office, I will not be hearing him bleating. It is nice to hear governors worried about how Tinubu will use the power that he has triumphantly claimed through the Molebu National Assembly. It's actually beautiful to see them worried, because it is in them worrying that they realize the need to bridle power. The law does not give any power that it does not bridle. When it gives you a power, it sets out the limits of that power. You have a president who is now unlimited by the constitution that we have always maintained is a lie. So that lie is no longer strong enough to give us any semblance of normalcy. The president will not normalize. They are the ones who have to now remind themselves, each and every one of those ones who are busy with their voice acclamation instead of what the Constitution demanded, a clear two-thirds after quorum might have been met in each of the houses. Each one of them, that corrupt power that they have sanctioned, it will come visiting them at some point.
How?
Oh, when you stand at the beach and you are busy peeing on the crab, the wind will change direction at some point. When power is only limited by a man's whims, the day will come when his whims will be directed against the enablers. And that is inevitable. The man who was busy joining him to dance Bugaon after Chatham House, is the power not raining on his own head today?
Yeah.
Each and every person who has endorsed evil in Nigeria in the past and clapped for it, including each and every one who is chasing Tinubu around today, from Atiku to Rufais to Kwankwaso, to each and every one of them, at the point when they had the power, when they could have done different, what did they do? When they were enthroning him and they were being warned about the subversion of the Constitution and the destruction of the democratic order, were they not applauding? So everybody is going to dance the boogaloo that is about to come.
Okay. Well, on that note, I want to say, let's take a short break. When we come back, we will continue. Mr. Farotimi, you have raised a lot of issues that we're going to have to take a look at and unbundle quite a bit. So we take a short break. When we come back, the conversation with Dele Farotimi, a lawyer and an author, continues here on NC Exclusive.
Well, you asked for it.
And New Central has delivered.
You asked for it.
And New Central has delivered.
You asked for it, and we delivered.
You asked for it?
Now you've got it.
Yes, New Central is live on GoTV Channel 23. Get the latest news and headlines from Nigeria and across the world. With GoTV, News Central gives you major stories and breaking news on politics, business, sports and entertainment at your fingertips. Welcome to fearless reporting like no other. You asked for it. And now you've got it. News Central on GoTV Channel 23.
Welcome back to News Central Exclusive. If you're just tuning in, we've been discussing the unfolding constitutional crisis in Rivers State and its implication for Nigeria's democracy. Now let's turn our attention to another major political shift. That's going to be Rufais' defection from the APC and the formation of a potential opposition coalition. Could this be a game changer for 2027? Or is this the regular political song and dance? But before you answer that, let me just take us back to the last 15 minutes of the program, where I was asking about the Senate and the House of Rep. Some people said there was no quorum, and that meant that it's an illegality to support a decision of the president that some said was illegal, and then have another illegality as the next layer on top of it, where quorums were not formed in both houses. And there's a member of House of Rep who was shouting, "We don't have quorum." What do you say to this, and where does it take us? Are we going all the way to the abyss before we come back?
I will try to keep this as brief as I can. About a couple of weeks ago, there was a video of Julius Malema. Even I posted it, where he was arguing with the South African Speaker of the House. And they were having an argument, and Malema told the woman, "The court just ruled against you. By what rules are you asking that I should be silent? The court just ruled against you." He kept emphasizing that the court just ruled against the speaker. The importance of that singular phrase, the court, is lost on Nigerians, but it was the beginning of our woes. A government that is not bound by rules, that does not obey laws. INEC told us that it had made regulations under the Electoral Act, but those regulations, it violated them, and the courts upheld these violations. The House was reminded by one of his own members of the fact that it's on public record that you don't have quorum, because the constitutional requirement is of 2/3 of its members sat in the House, not 2/3 of the people sat there, talk less of voice acclamations. So there was only a pretense at compliance with constitutional demands. But even if they had properly convened, the secondary issue is, could they have ratified an illegality? But we are in an environment where I don't need the soothsayer to tell me what our Supreme Court would say if this matter ever gets before it. We're in an environment where Akpabio does what he cares in the Senate, and his counterpart in the House of Rep does exactly the same. We are not governed by any rules. So speaking about the House of Reps or talking about the Senate, speaking to the observance of rules and compliance with norms is a waste of time in our situation. Rules do not matter any longer. It is about the will of men. If the man sat at the top of the pyramid says that he desires a third and fourth term, between Akpabio and his brother Awase, they will give it to him. Our constitution does not matter.
Did you just say that if the president wants a
I
third
am
term?
repeating myself without any fear of contradiction that if Bola Ahmed Tinubu decides that he wants a third term, pretty much like Uncle Shege, he would would submit that bill and your House of Reps and Senate will pass that bill in record time. You are seeing the beginning of the Yademization of our presidency. You are seeing the beginning of a full-blown dictatorship that is unrestrained by any law. That is the reality. The only thing that has happened is that it is crowing triumphantly in the marketplace, announcing that it is unrestrained by laws or by rules. It is not that it started today. It was always part and parcel of our governance system. Obasanjo did the same, he just did it differently. Yar'Adua did the same, he just did it differently. Buhari was not so refined in pushing his own in our face. And the one thing you can take for granted is that Bulaba does not care one bit what any one of the belly achers, from the likes of me to the ones in his class who are going to feel the heat in the coming days. He doesn't care what they say or think. It's about power. And he's in control. He's the one in power.
Okay, let's jump quickly because of time to Kaduna State's former governor, Nasir Rufai. His dumped APC moved to SDP recently. Shortly after that, he and former Vice President of Nigeria and PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar held a press conference jointly about a coalition to unseat APC in 2027. Given their political history, how realistic is an alliance between El Rufai and Atiku? What are your thoughts? And if they are able to drag your friend Peter Obi into that alliance, where do you think this will go?
Okay. The movement of El Rufai from APC merely signals the beginning of the political transfer season. We're 2 years away from the pretense at an election. But I am saying it, and let it be on record and let it be clear. If we don't have substantive and substantial electoral reform, Jesus Christ himself, pardon me, no blasphemy intended, could be on the ballot. I'm not going to be involved in that election. Tinubu is not a man who leaves anything to chance. I warrant that the election result in 2027 is already written, if it is going to be based on what we currently have. So maybe he'll remove Yakubu and put someone else. They'll still do exactly what he cares for them to do. So unless people are saying they are forming coalitions where they are looking to turn the Nigerian into an empowered citizen whose vote would count, if Atiku and even Satan, and in any case, El Rufai is not Satan, he's just an odious person as far as I'm concerned. Even if El Rufai leads a charge for electoral reform today, as much as I find this person objectionable, I will follow him in the path to changing this system. Without electoral reform, which consequentially turns the Nigerian into an empowered being who can vote for those he wants and reject those he does not want, 2027 is a waste of time. And if Peter Obi should find alliance with an El Rufai, the question is this: that alliance, is it one that is found after Nigerians have become citizens where their votes will count? If it is one, I might look at the content of such an alliance without prejudice to the fact that I would expect that someone who has committed so many sins against the Nigerian people, especially the people of Southern Kaduna, like El Rufai, will pay penance and take a back seat. I wouldn't expect him to be front and center and be allowing people to be reminded, because I don't know how anybody would expect the people of Southern Kaduna to be looking at an El Rufai, even the people of the entire Middle Belt. I don't know how they will they will be able to stomach an El Rufai in a political party where he has a prominent position. His bigotry is documented, too well documented for it to be something that we can be arguing.
I watched Professor Chidi Odinkalu on one of the conversations he had with some people where he said that if El Rufai is going to be on the ballot, he would rather have Tinubu back. Would you say the same, or would you find a situation where you can't pick between the two of them?
Let me say this. Tinubu is the devil I know. El Rufai's capacity for evil I don't really know. I just know that he's a deeply, deeply, I find my skin crawls when I think of the things that has been associated with him, the things he himself has said in the public space, how terrorists are to be paid, how when you hold the Fulani man, you are going to pay for it, how the people of Southern Kaduna were just treated like vermins. Whether he was directly responsible, he was the governor, the chief security officer of the state, and he didn't have anything soothing to say to these things. And I am involved in the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum. I've heard Middle Belt people speak to their pains in the hands of Fulani marauders. And to now hear somebody speaking to the normalization of that level of evil, it makes my skin crawl. So I cannot argue against what Chidi Odinkalu said, although it's almost like asking which hand I would prefer to have chopped off. Because as between the two of them, the Nigerian people will find no salvation.
Okay, so Rufai was a key figure in APC. He was part of those that raised it to power. Yet in leaving the party, he cited a growing misalignment between his values and the current direction.
What values?
What values you say? Okay. So he said that the ruling party as the primary reason for the decision. So what do you make of his justification in terms of values? Because when you look at the APC today, are there things that will make even somebody that you find despicable as much as you say about Rufai? If he says there are values that are being trampled upon by APC, what say you to that?
In February 2015, the piece that titled my first book, Do Not Die in Their War, was published. And I remember saying at the time that when I look at the high table at any gathering of the APC, I see all kinds of people who do not inspire any hope of a better future in me. This was in spite of the colorlessness of the Jonathan administration. Now, when Rufai is talking about values, question is, what values has the APC? None. Nigeria has been driven into the abyss in the last 10 years by the APC. Rufai cannot be divorced from the APC. Everything APC. Rufai is like a mother who is claiming that she has disowned her armed robber son. You bettered this child. You raised and nurtured the child. You taught it what it is doing. How do you turn around and say, the father can even turn around and be claiming that maybe some paternity test might prove that he's not the actual father. But the mother, how does she turn around and claim that she has disowned her child and is not responsible for the kind of creature that she has bettered? Rufai and the APC are one and the same. He was one of the chief. It's almost like Tinubu during the years of Buhari claiming that he has nothing to do with the APC. That would be a most venal lie. Rufai and the APC, one and the same. He might now have found a Damascus Road conversion, and that's perfectly normal. Anybody can repent. So maybe he has repented, he has found reason to say that, okay, they were all wrong, but I haven't heard him apologize for the formation of that evil coalition.
So let's talk about Atiku. He has contested for the president multiple times under different party banners. Does this coalition signal another attempt for him, or is it truly about opposition against the current government? Is there any chance that you can see a future of Nigeria dependent on an Atiku?
Nigeria breaks the heart constantly. And when you hope for better, you just find your hopes quickly shattered again. I would love to believe that Alhaji Atiku's involvement in this political cycle that is about to commence will be that of a statesman, a man who looks at the totality of our situation and become sufficiently self-sacrificing to do what is best for Nigeria and not what he believes best for himself. I say this because I am not one of those who believe that because a man has pursued power for so long, he should give it up. Atiku has been pursuing power as far back as 1992, if my memory serves me right. He was there at the SDP convention. He ran. He was told, I believe, to withdraw for Abiola. So that goes, if you take the time and do the maths, that's 35 years. So he's been running a race for 35 years. I don't know what vision he is chasing. The Bible is very specific. It says the vision is for an appointed time. Though it tarries, wait for it. Write it down, make it plain, that those who read it might run after it. It could very well be that there is a vision behind which he is running. I haven't caught that vision, and I don't see him as the solution to Nigeria's problem, because I believe our problems require very radical solutions. And I don't see him as being capable of that, but it is his right to aspire.
Okay, so other names we've heard involved in this coalition include Peter Obi of the Labour Party, the former secretary to the government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, the national secretary of the coalition of United Political Parties, Peter Ame, the convener of the Alternative, dear friend Segun Shoumi, formerly of PDP, who now says there is the alternative, as well as even the name of Rufais Amici was mentioned, the names of Kaide Fayemi, former governor of Ekiti, was mentioned, and on and on and on and on. So if you look at all of this, do you think this coalition can convince Nigerians that it offers something that is different from APC rather than just an anti-APC party looking to steal or snatch or corner power?
I still saw Mr. Peter Obi last week, but I warrant that he did not discuss this or his involvement in it with me. So I really do not know, and I cannot speak to his involvement. But what I do know is this: when the political transfer season begins, it is normal to have these permutations, names being bandied, people who have been dislocated from the power center, those who are genuine and wanting change. You find all kinds of people finding alliances with each other. But as I have said already, their permutations and shenanigans do not excite me, because I know that when they are done, even if they gain power, without the people having been empowered, all that would have happened is that we will merely change one set of slave masters for another set of slave masters. These persons that you have mentioned, with the possible exception of Peter Obi, were persons who were on the other side enjoying these same largesse, who are largely complicit in the mess we're complaining about, and who would probably have remained within the APC if the APC had found accommodations for them. So it could very well be, as I have said in relation to Alhaji Abubakar, that maybe there is a vision chasing them. We'll find out in due course. But if they were calling for electoral reform, what they are doing might interest me. What they are doing right now doesn't interest me. I just see the same political operators jostling for position in a new coalition with which they expect to engage with the system so that the system might negotiate terms of settlements with them, even if they cannot shift the current occupiers. I don't see anything else.
Okay, so do you see any politician, maybe you can mention 1, 2, 3, or maybe 5, do you see any politician in Nigeria that you think this one and maybe this one do wish to empower the people to be able to have the right to vote and to expect their vote to count? Do you see any? Just very quickly. So
to be very frank with you, the only one I can think of who is in the presidential race at any point is Peter Obi. If votes had counted in 2023, he didn't lose the election. So he should be interested in empowering the people so that their votes may count. Aside from him, all the others have been beneficiaries of a system that allocates votes and stand behind it with the powers of a corrupted judiciary. That is the reality. The only politician who has engaged with the political system, both the electoral system and the judicial system, to fight for the supremacy of the people's sovereignty expressed in their vote has been Peter Obi. So without bias and without prejudice to the fact that I supported him in the last election, that is the reality. The others just want to replace those who currently wield power.
So would you say that Peter Obi might be a messiah?
There are no messiahs.
No messiahs.
And no messiahs can save Nigeria. It is the people themselves who will save themselves. Peter is merely the person we have adopted in this season. If and when his ideals do not align with the ideals of the people, they won't tell him before they will move on.
So the obedience will disobey.
The obedience were never about servile obedience. It wasn't about that. It was about being clear as to what we want and what we want changed. And what is called the obedient movement has been in place for a while. The reality of the matter is that it merely coalesced behind the person of Peter Gregory Obi in the lead up to the 2023 election because he represented their hopes and aspirations. It was a totem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll take a short break. Dele, Farotimi, thank you very much. When we come back, we'll dive deeper into the broader political realignments and what they mean for the future of governance in Nigeria. Please don't go away. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still here with us on News Central Exclusive, a conversation with Dele Farotimi, a man who's an author, a writer, someone whose book has gone viral and sold out, and also a lawyer. Some people described him as an activist and an enigma. I'm not sure what other names they give you, but I know for a fact that you always say to me, every single time we sit down to talk, you say, all you're interested in is to speak the truth. So now let's look at this. Recently, I spoke with the chairman of a political party in Nigeria, and he said to me that APC and the current government has done everything possible to create a situation where all political parties become so alike that they might as well be subsumed under APC so that we end up with one single party, which makes Nigeria a one-party state, a one-party nation. So when Buba Galadima recently described Social Democratic Party as merely a faction of the APC, stating the SDP is a branch of the APC that has created a faction. And it was those APC people that moved to what is now called SDP, nothing more. Given this perspective, where do you stand in terms of Nigeria eventually becoming a one-party state, if where we are now becomes where we continue in terms of our trajectory?
You know, I think in the weeks after Mahmoud, is it Mahmoud Yakubu? In the weeks after he had just announced Tinubu as the president, there was a tweet that went completely viral. And it was a gentleman who was, maybe a lady, I'm not sure now. The person was reeling out what we should expect in the federal government now that Tinubu had captured the Abuja seat. And everything the guy said is what is happening now. Truth is, Tinubu does not have the temperament to tolerate opposition. Our constitution, quote and unquote, is also one that is easily malleable, and we are lacking in institutions. So what you can tell as a fact is that the same way Lagos has been captured and it has become the fiefdom of a man, one man, it is in the same manner that Nigeria will become the fiefdom of one man unless something radical happens to stop that from being the case. If you recall, I'd also said earlier on today that Rufais and all these other persons are essentially the same men from yesterday. They are yesterday's men who are seeking to influence today. These are the same people who built the APC. Once upon a time, they were in other places. They were either in the PDP or they were in the CPC or in what they call the new PDP and then the AC. So when you see all these people now coming out of the APC, by which they had already destroyed not only Nigeria, but even the thing they call democracy, they've destroyed it with that vehicle already. You now see them coming out, they say they are in SDP today. My dear older brother and friend, Brother Peter Said Atedo, is in that same SDP. I'm not sure even he will be able to stay there much longer if it becomes overpopulated by these different characters whose values I know that Brother Peter Said does not share. So when you hear Galadima speaking to the fact that we are nearing, that person who was talking, the party chairman, who was talking about the APC seeking to make the other parties in their own image, the person was only being clever by half. The average Nigerian party is pretty much the same as the next. The only thing that is happening is that the APC no longer has the tolerance for the other hegemonies that have been existing outside the sphere of their own influence. So all these other hegemons in different parts of the country, the people like Lamido in Jigawa, Kwakwanso, these little hegemons who are used to controlling their own spaces, they are the ones in danger. Because the hegemony that is currently controlling the federal government of Nigeria has no space to tolerate any one of them. It must be, he has said, and it is. That's why you don't have tenders board in Nigeria again. Our contracts are awarded left, right, and center. Nobody talks again. Who is supposed to talk? All the institutional voices have been silenced.
So when some people listen to you and they say that you're demarketing Nigeria.
Demarketing Nigeria. The West is not stupid. The world sees us. They know the emperor is naked. They see us. The world has become, in truth, a global village. The Natasha Akpoti thing was on Sky News a couple of days back. I've been on international websites and I'm seeing them discussing us. When the world look at us, they see us without the filters that we wear, the filters and blinkers of ethnicity, of religion, of partisanship. The world does not see that. They don't know the Igbo man from the Yoruba man. They can't tell the Fulani man from the Ijaw man. They just see a bunch of irresponsible people incapable of governing themselves or envisioning a future for themselves and their children. They just see a people who can't seem to get it together. So,
is that the way you think they see a nation of 220 million people?
But how else do you think they will see us, given the way we are? We were, I don't know where we are today, but we were once upon a time the 6th largest producer of crude in the world. The only refinery we have in our country can't get crude from our country. He has to go and be buying crude. Even if he will buy from Nigeria, he has to buy it in dollars and then sell in dollars so that a people who are already pauperized might be further pauperized. Is that a country? What kind of hope does that inspire? The world is looking at us. Once upon a time, I used to enjoy traveling on the west coast of Africa, Ghana, Gambia, and all that. But after a while, maybe like 10 years ago, it became a torturous thing to go there because they began to look at Nigerians with contempt. How we have managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory on multiple occasions, squandering all kinds of opportunities that God has given us. The world sees us. If we don't want to tell ourselves the truth, that's a different thing. We might elect to wear the blinkers that has prevented us from
So is our
seeing.
problem that of morals or that of education?
Our problem is not single dimensional. What we have is a complete systemic collapse. Our educational system is gone. Our electoral system unfit for purpose. Our judicial system not producing any equity or justice. Our police, they joke. A police is meant to be law enforcement, right? What laws do our police enforce when the law does not rule? So they are forced to enforce impunity. What laws are the judiciary interpreting when they must say what the organ in the executive wants? So they begin to speak from both sides of their mouth, and you cannot rely on judicial precedents. And when you even read some judgment, if you have any legal education whatsoever, you become almost sickened by the realization that judicial anarchy is upon us. You think the rest of the world cannot see that? They are seeing us. They're looking at us. I was speaking with some diplomats, I think a couple of weeks after I came out of prison in Ekiti. And what they know of us made me sick to my stomach.
Let me take this as my final question. The Attorney General defends President Tinubu's decision on Rivers State. The Attorney General, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, cited a breakdown of law and order and disobedience to court rulings as key reasons for the emergency rule. Do you agree, as a lawyer, with the argument of a senior advocate who is also the Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
If Prince Lateef Fagbemi had said anything different from what he said, I would have been shocked. Because I imagine that he must, in his role as the Attorney General of the Federation, have offered the legal advice that catalyzed the different actions that had been taken by the President. But that is also to be taken in the understanding that the law does not matter to this regime. The law does not matter to this regime. I am on record as having said maybe like 2-3 months ago, I know it was before I was hauled to Ekiti. I said at the time that people should pay attention to our Attorney General. I was very specific in saying they should pay attention to our Attorney General because I know that the temperament of those who would give legal advice to Tinubu would serve as the only guardrail to his dictatorial instinct. I fully expected him to be unrestrained by law. But I also know that his impulses would either be reined in or enabled by the person occupying that office. So I hold him as responsible as President Tinubu for the round of lawlessness that has been let loose. So I didn't expect him to have said anything different. Whatever he would have had to say would be in justification for the action that he had already advised and that the President had taken.
Is there a chance that that was not his advice, but he has no choice but to accept
It
whatever
would then be
it
up
is?
to him to disown the act. The NBA has spoken loudly on the legality or otherwise of the steps taken by the President. And I align myself completely with the position of the NBA, who I really agree with, but who appears to have found their voice these days. And Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, who is a genius when it comes to the interpretation of law, may decide to interpret it differently from the rest of us, but posterity will judge who is right.
Okay, so just before we go, I can't but mention Afenifere and Papa that passed away recently. What's your thoughts about the man that we all call Papa?
Chiva Adebanjo, if there ever was an enigma, that was the enigma. You know, when I came out of prison and I went to see him in the house, and he was happy, he said, you come out of prison. I said, you are the senior one now. Because a lot of people may be unaware, but Papa also spent time in prison for the treasonable felony trials. After he was deported back, after Nkrumah lost power, he spent time in prison here in Nigeria, I think almost a full year. It was after, I think 1967 or thereabout. before he was released. He was a man who found humor in everything, but he was also a man of very deep convictions. He stayed by his convictions all through his life. He stayed only in one political party all through his life. He was a lifelong member of the Afenifere, which he joined, I believe, in 1953 or thereabout. And he remained in that party until the time of his death. So Papa is irreplaceable. We can only hope that his example would inspire others. I look to him for inspiration on multiple things. He was a man who lived his life without fear of death, and yet he lived to be 96.
He was a great man. And on that note, I will say thank you very much, Mr. Dele Farotimi, for sharing your time and perspective with us. Your insights have been thought-provoking as always.
Thank you very
much. Grateful for your time. So
thanks
I look forward to having you again very soon.
It's been a pleasure.
Nigeria's case is never ending, is it?
We do what we can.
I remember somebody saying the problem of Nigeria is Hydra-headed, but
It's
that at the same
that.
time, it is a theater of the absurd.
There is this figure in Greek mythology, I believe, Sisyphus. Dealing with Nigeria is not unlike the Sisyphean task, when you are rolling a stone uphill, and it constantly rolls back, threatening to crush you.
Yeah.
That's Nigeria for you.
Wow.
But we keep trying.
We'll keep trying. So, and to our viewers, we appreciate you for staying with us on NC Exclusive. Thank you so much. The conversation does not end here. Join us on our social media platforms to continue the discussion. Let us know your thoughts using the hashtag NC Exclusive. And let me use this opportunity to say to you that we are now on GoTV channel 23. I am Kaide Akintemi, and it's been great being here as always. We remain committed to bringing you in-depth analysis of the issues that matters the most. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.